Hello, and welcome to Soundscape and Mindful Meditation, where we explore the transformative power of meditation, sound healing, spirituality, and mindfulness. My name is Amandine, your guide on this journey toward inner balance and harmony. In this podcast, we delve into practices that nourish the soul, elevate the spirit, and cultivate a deeper connection with oneself. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming a truly remarkable guest, Dr. Christiane Schroeter, a business and wellness coach, author, and the founder of Hello Happiness. Dr. Schroeter's journey is a testament to resilience and transformation. From struggling with self-confidence during her teenage years to becoming a dietitian and helping others achieve wellness, her story is incredibly empowering. She moved to the US on a Fulbright scholarship, where she pursued a Ph.D. in applied economics at Purdue University, specializing in health economics. She has been a professor in California teaching marketing, innovation, and entrepreneurship, all while raising her two amazing daughters. In 2013, she launched Hello Happiness Coaching, dedicating her energy to helping women in business boost their sales and wellness through life coaching and supportive community of the Happiness Collective. Her mission is to empower female entrepreneurs to thrive by embracing their true selves. Join me as I dive into Christine's extraordinary journey and discover how she supports women in juggling countless roles and multitasking through her various coaching program and digital products. Well, hello everyone, and hi Christiane. Thank you so much for joining me. I love that on your website it shows your name phonetically, and it is a French sounding name, so I can say it without fearing that I'm going to say it wrong. Welcome so very much. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I'm excited about chatting with you about all the things and all the wisdom that you share with the world and how you got there. And I'm just going to jump right in. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to create your globally ranked podcast, Happy, Healthy, Hustle?
Thank you so much for having me on this amazing podcast. I'm really excited to share some tips and some tricks, of course. So stay tuned. This is really going to be a good one, packed with some inside tips. And let's get started right away. What inspired me to start my own podcast? You might have been thinking about this yourself, maybe sharing stories. And the goal as an entrepreneur, I always think, is you help others to help yourself. And I think you come to that realization somewhat in your journey that you kind of look back and you're thinking, what's going to be my legacy that I share with the world, right? What's going to be written on my tombstone? What is it really that I created that others will talk about when I'm maybe not in the room? And for me, it was really helping entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, empower themselves. And so I thought I need to give people a platform to share their stories, the challenges that they overcame and how they overcame it, and let others know that it's not an easy journey, but there is hope and there's inspiration. And what is it that other people did to get through these challenges? So in my podcast, I always share challenges and what of who helped to overcome challenges with the goal of letting others know it doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be complicated, it doesn't even have to be like a super lengthy process, but there is hope for whatever you're going through that might resonate with somebody else's struggles.
I like that. It is, and I appreciate you sharing that there is a lot of struggle. It's not that we have a tendency to create that dreamy, aura around being entrepreneur and your own boss. But the truth of the matter is that it's hard, especially, if you don't have your driver, if it's not and that easy as we, intend to like to think it is. So I appreciate that reasoning behind it. So before you started that podcast, you've had a very diverse career. To what I understand, you've taught fitness, but you're also a professor, and then you started your company. Like, can you tell us, about that all of those different aspects of your career, and yeah, what sparked, those different decision and brought you on this unique path of yours?
Yeah. So before my Happy, Healthy Hustle podcast came the decision to start my own business, which is called Hello Happy Nest. And you can kind of see from the names how it's resonating with my own trajectory.
So much.
I came to the United States for graduate school. And as I stepped off the plane, I always say, I found all of a sudden, oh, this is my nest. This is really where I feel my body is at home, right? And so if you think about a nest, that's really kind of like your comfort zone where you're feeling you're thriving and you're doing your best. So it was kind of like I stepped on the plane and I was like, oh, hello, happy nest. And I'm feeling just right at home. And I really enjoyed the PhD program that I went through, even though I just mentioned earlier, it's challenging. But at the same time, I enjoyed the challenge and I really enjoyed also being, learning and being stimulated with regard to expanding my mind. And after I went through that, I also realized that you quickly, whenever you have challenges, put your own health on the back burner. And I figured out some tricks because, of course, in graduate school, it's like time is fluid. There isn't like necessarily a beginning or an end to a work day. There isn't really necessarily a weekend where you have time off from studying or deadlines or anything. So you have to make sure that you still take care of yourself. And with little tips and tricks that I wove into my day, I was able then to graduate with my PhD. And then after my PhD, I had my first daughter, that I realized I should help others and make sure that they have these little moments to themselves. And I actually really enjoy the French language a lot. So I ended up calling it petit practices, like little tips and tricks that you can use in your day to add a little bit of health and wellness without, again, complication, without making it timely or without making it expensive. Because one thing for sure is that a graduate student, you don't have a ton of money, a ton of time, and you also don't have the ability to necessarily even go somewhere. So ideally, self-care that you can do at home in a quick amount of time, usually I say 15 minutes, and something that really sparks joy. And that's really how my company was born, that I looked at myself and I thought, what I just figured out is super helpful to somebody else. So I should share that with others. And people really resonated with that. And I created an online program, Journey to Wellness, that in 21 days with just 15 minutes per day helps others overcome gut health issues, fatigue, maybe issues with regard to their skin or their hair that they frequently see is related to gut health. And it worked so well. I had so many hundred of women that I helped all over the world that I thought I should then also create this more as a membership. And then I came to my membership, and now my podcast shares all of this as well. And so one thing led to the next. This is frequently how it works in life. And I have a little family, so to speak, all my little babies, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like how you were able to achieve amazing things and you found those tools along the way to help you achieve them in a healthy manner. And it's so important, yes, especially in this capitalist society that we're in, not expensive tools. It annoys me that there is so many, wellness or, spiritual leaders that, claim to have the tools for enlightenment or health. And then it's like, oh yeah, it's only $6,000. And you're like, this is elitist and we need to help as many people as we can, and not just the one that can afford a 4 or 5 digit, so-called transformation. So I love that. And I appreciate how you gradually and organically grew it, and people were so receptive to you that you could create a membership. That's really interesting. That's really beautiful. uh do you, so I assume that there is parts, in in the tricks and the tools that you teach, there is like a part of the body. Is there like mindfulness or meditation or a little bit of everything? How to, could you give us like 1 or 2 bites, of the type of tools that you share with your crowd?
Yeah, in fact, actually, I always say it starts with your mind. And the mind is the hardest thing, like that area between your two ears. If you get your brain on board, everything else will just fall into place. But if you don't have the right mindset, you are probably not going to succeed with regard to your wellness journey. Because think about that. You need to look at your day and you need to consciously and with intention create a little slot for yourself. And I never really believe in the argument that people say, I don't have 10 minutes, I don't have 5 minutes during the day, right? I basically talk about 15 minutes right here. Because if you put your phone into your hands, 15 minutes just gets sucked away so quickly. And those 15 minutes you could have spent taking care of yourself. And again, we're not speaking about a cardio workout, something that requires you to even change clothing. It could just be that you walked around the block, or maybe you lay down and stretched. So the mind is the very first thing that will need to change, because you need to find in yourself some mantra or some motivation that lets you kickstart your journey to wellness. And in my membership, I love actually pairing people up with accountability partners because it does help to build community. I always say the connection comes first, and then maybe you can collaborate. So maybe finding accountability partners, and then you feel you're part of a community. So if you don't maybe do your 15 minutes per day, you're feeling my community is going to wait for me and they're going to ask me about it. And then you nearly feel that you created a habit that you want to share with others, and your little stepping stones, your little mini goals along the way that you accomplished on the way of your big goal. So that's really important. And I always feel that we all know what we need to do to be healthy. But if you're not on board with it yourself, it's not going to work, right? So you have to find that driver internally, and then things are going to fall into place. And the results from my members and from people that completed my journey to wellness are most surprising and very uplifting and very emotional as well, because it's just so transformative what you can accomplish in 15 minutes per day that frequently we don't even think that it's that easy, but it truly is actually.
Yes, I totally agree with you. We don't, I mean, sure, if you can meditate an hour a day, this is great. Please do it. But if, like, maybe you and me, you have kids and, and the day has only 24 hours, yes, 15 minutes goes a longer way than zero. So, yes, and it's transformative. You were mentioning, accountability and accountability coaching, which I think is the key. But as an accountability coach, what are the most common challenges that you see in female business owners that you deal with, and how do you help them overcome these challenges? Is it just the group, or is there like an extra, layer of support that you can bring to them?
So I always say accountability is somewhat like bookends, right? So you start setting your goal, then you actually have to put it somewhere in a calendar, or maybe even on sticky notes, or maybe you have reminders on your phone. And then you have to make sure you actually follow up on it. So you set a goal, you put it somewhere, and then you follow up on it. It's like the 3-step process right there. Because if you just set a goal, it's not really written down somewhere. It's essentially like very lofty, because we are like too generous with ourselves when we tend to be thinking, oh, tomorrow I will do this, and maybe next week, and maybe, oh, there's New Year. And you always tend to push it out because it's not an immediate thing that's in your face.
Yeah.
But if you actually write it down, along the fact of the connection between the pen and your brain is already helping solidify your goal. And then thirdly, having a follow up on it. So maybe, and I do this all the time, I put events on my calendar and then I put it on repeat. So that, for instance, I repeat it in a week and then it will come up on my calendar as a little reminder. And I'm like, oh, that's true. I need to do this right now. And of course, because it's on my calendar, my watch, it also comes up on my brain. It like maybe vibrates. And so it's like, essentially, you are making your life easier because you're creating these little crutches that will help you achieve a goal that's maybe not part of your habit system quite yet. As a female entrepreneur, I always say this is like, those artists in the circus that have all these plates on these little sticks that they are trying to keep spinning, and they keep adding other plates to it. And then eventually they feel maybe the plates are going to fall down. The way that I look at this is really that your health should always be the most important plate, right? Because if you spin all these plates, if your health, nothing else is really going to work out because you can't keep running your business because you're not feeling well. And I always think that the important thing really is you take care of yourself and then you can take care of others, including your business, right? And then you will see things are going to start falling into place. And so it's not really just a thing that should be added on, but rather it should encompass the whole day. So ideally, if you think about the 50 minutes per day, you could even break it up into 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, and 5 minutes in the evening, to where you parcel it out a little bit so that, again, like, I talked about these bookends, that you feel your day is wrapped into this cozy little health cushion. And then you will really feel, you know what, I didn't commit a lot of time, but yet I'm feeling there's something that I'm doing for myself. And alone that will help your brain and feeling that you're not just doing things for others, you're stretching yourself thin, but there's also a little bit of me time in there. And that will already propel you to keep going.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, yeah, that self-care is kind of like honey, right? You have all these ingredients in your plate, and but then you have that sauce that allows everything to get tight. Because yeah, like you say, if you stretch yourself too thin, you're not aligned even with yourself anymore. The decisions that are going to come out of your mind are not as optimal as the one that you have when you're fully balanced and you're shining your true light. So I really enjoy how you expressed it. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask you, moving on to something else that I've noticed that you mentioned, is that you teach food marketing and
Mhm.
health economics. And I was like, what is that? I'm interested. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah. So it probably started when I was a teenager living in Germany. You might hear that from my accent, to where I am very passionate about healthy food and healthy eating. But if you think about it, most people not immediately gravitating to healthy food. It's just not, right? It's not convenient necessarily, or it's maybe not really the most attractive looking or sounding even. And so frequently the unhealthier food options sound way better, easier, and more convenient than anything like preparing a salad from scratch. So I noticed I was working as a dietitian that most of the clients that came into the clinic where I worked deep down really knew what they needed to do. There was this challenge with regard to actually doing it.
Hmm.
And while they were in the clinic, we made all the food for them. They had workouts. They saw psychologists. It was amazing. They really transformed into healthier human beings. But then when they left and went back into their home environment, they went right back to their old habits.
Of course.
And of course, there's always a few that maybe didn't. They took a few things with them. I mean, I'm hoping that there were quite a lot. But in reality, it is really your environment that somewhat exposes you to convenience food and coming back into your old habits, right? And it's frequently also the taste that you're like, oh, I really miss eating these comfort foods. And so I'm just going to do this. I thought we need to do a little bit more than just giving them counseling at the clinic where they are away from their home, but rather giving them hope to when they go back at home, they can actually continue these healthy habits.
Hmm.
And that's really where food marketing and food economic comes in. It basically explains to you when you go to the grocery store how marketers put these unhealthier or convenient food options out so that they really stand out on the shelf and really get your attention. And what I would like is that people go to the grocery store and they make healthier food choices. Because at the grocery store, your mind and your money is in the same spot, especially when you're hungry. You tend to gravitate maybe convenience foods, where in reality you're entering the grocery store and the first thing that you actually do see are healthier food options, the fruits and the vegetables in the food section as you come in. So in food marketing, I really coach people through what do companies do with regard to getting your attention, with regard to health claims or putting foods together, and what do consumers really do with regard to finding information about healthier food options and that are not necessarily expensive, that are not necessarily complicated. So in my marketing classes, I basically explain what can we do as consumers in finding healthier food options that are still in line with our budget and at the same time allow us to lead a healthier lifestyle that really works for us, to where we're feeling we are thriving, because we all have individual tastes and preferences. And it should never be that you feel you're restricting your food intake. It should always be you're just adding healthier food options in and you have fun with your life. So in food marketing, it's really all about finding what's new in the market and then finding what works for you and aligning with those food choices, understanding a little bit more about what's on the shelf, why is it there, and how does it work for me, and making more informed choices. So most of the students that go through my classes say they will never go to a grocery store with the same mindset. They always feel they pick up packages, they start studying them because all of a sudden they understand more about what comes from the company, right? And they come together with that in that little Venn diagram intersection. So it's the company and the consumer coming together and forming a little bit more of an informed choice. That's really what it comes down to.
Knowledge is power.
Exactly.
As you were explaining the field, it reminded me when I spent a year in Japan when I was a teenager, and I remember. I mean, I'm sure Germany is the same than France is like, or the US. You have those, soda vending machine, and 95% of the time it's like a Coca-Cola big image on it. And
Yeah.
about 90% of your options are sodas, heavy in sugar and things like this. When I arrived in Japan, the machines were green, and the number one thing you would see was green tea. 90% of the offers were green tea, no sugar. And then you had maybe like a couple of sodas option. And it blew my mind because I was like watching people ordering their can, of drinks, and everybody was picking the sugar-free tea and not the Coca-Cola, because the design was made so that the first thing you see and the most accessible is the healthy choice. And it blew my mind, like, wait, if it's possible in another capitalist country like Japan, why isn't it like an offer here where we first see the things that are healthy, and then if we want to get crazy, we'll get, the alternatives. But no, here, yeah, it's the other way around. And it's so frustrating sometimes a little bit because, and I appreciate that you're teaching that and the marketing of those brands so that we're empowered to understand they're not trying to feed you and so they sustain your health. They are trying to make a buck.
Mm,
And
right.
so, yeah, I love that you're teaching that. It's so, there's so much yet to unwrap in that, especially here in the US, where I feel like, have you ever seen that food pyramid here? I
Mhm.
don't know how it was in Germany. I know in France at the bottom there was veggies and fruits. And when I moved here, I saw the pyramid and I was like, what do you mean it's bread at the bottom of the pyramid and veggies are like in the middle? And you're like, even that, like, how are people supposed to eat healthy if they don't even understand like what their body is supposed to receive? I mean, so thank you so much for doing that. I feel like there's so many people that must be benefiting from that kind of work. I mean, it's amazing. Especially I'm a French, so when you talk food, it becomes very quickly very personal.
And it should be personal. Again, the main goal is to enjoy food because there's so much culture around food. Earlier, I mentioned community. The way that I personally look at food, it's not just like fueling your body,
Mm.
it's also building connection. Looking at meals as something that brings everybody together, building a culture around preparing the meals or even purchasing the food together. So when I had children, always took them with me to the grocery store. And of course, there were days when they were crying and I had to leave the grocery store until they calmed down. But I'm a strong believer that when I'm in the grocery store, my children are very much part of the team that makes the decision what ends up in the shopping cart, right? And I talk them through it even when they were little. I always talk to them like they are adults, right? So I basically said, look, here I am. I'm picking up broccoli because I'm going to steam this broccoli later on. It's going to be a side together with our potatoes and da da da. So talking through it, they understand I don't just like randomly pick up things. There is a certain strategy that I have in how the meals go together. And there's also a culture that goes along with it. And I buy things that are in season, or I buy things, that maybe it's an heirloom recipe from my family. So that's what I think is so important, that when I make a decision in the grocery store, I put it in a shopping cart, we bring it home, we prepare it together, we learn how to prepare food, that when it ends up at the table and we're eating together, that there is a certain part of yourself that you already invested in all this, right? I mean, we don't all have gardens where you can just go out and get broccoli. So when we go to the grocery store, all this is part of feeding ourselves and fueling our body. And you will notice that, especially with children, the more they invested in all these little decisions along the way, the more they're actually going to eat that broccoli at the end, because they were there at the grocery store when we picked it up. They were there when we took it out of the bag and started preparing it. And they were there and maybe putting it on the plates and putting the plates on the table and sitting at the table and saying it was very much part of all this. So the more, again, we're all family members, we're part of a team, the more I can include them into those decisions, the better. And it's the same thing with people I work with one-on-one. Frequently, actually take even a blender and I show them how to make a smoothie, right? I'm like, okay, you have to fill up the liquid here, you have to add the greens here, and this is how we're going to make a good smoothie, so that they understand this is not necessarily something I need to buy from a store pre-made. I can make this on my own. I can save a lot of money. And then I can even like customize it with ingredients that I love. And it's something like when I say green smoothie, people are like, eh. But then they try it themselves. They're like, oh, you know what? I actually like that. Because there is this buy-in there when you make it yourself. So that's really important in health economics, that you understand that homemade food is cheaper and it does not have to be complicated.
Amen. Thank you so much for adding that. The community part is so important. I mean, that's, yeah. And I love that you included your children in that process,
Yep.
empowering them to learn how to make a meal. And they're not, living as adult, like with all these recipes in their head, but they have the tools to understand what gets together to make a healthy meal. So thank you for sharing that. This is awesome. My next question for you is, what kind of advice would you have for individuals looking, at moving forward in their careers or their business? Because we talked about, a lot of different things. How is there like an umbrella, advice that you would give to people who are listening and are like, oh my God, I could really use like an advice to push through?
For me, community is the most important thing, because you will meet other entrepreneurs, maybe even female entrepreneurs, that are at varying stages of their career. And the more you connect with others, the more those community members will be there to help you through when you have a challenging day. There's a famous athlete, and she says it's the rules of three, right? So you might have one really good day in your business. I mean, that athlete talks about workouts, but right now let's use the rule of three for a business. You might have one really great day. Maybe you applied to be on a podcast and you got the yes. Awesome. Good day. Maybe you applied for another podcast because you were motivated and then they said no on the next day. And then you're like, oh, I'm not good enough, right? And so that third day is kind of like, you don't know what to do. You have one podcast, yes, one podcast, no. And so that third day is kind of like me. So the way that I look at this in your business is, you can't always be like rainbows and unicorns. You need those days in between, those no days, that I actually call next opportunity days. Great. So somebody didn't want you to be a guest. Probably not a good fit. You don't need that. You don't need that to go to the next thing. Just think about no as next opportunity. Just move on and get up, right? Get going. So my biggest advice to business owners is, on those no days, text your accountability partner, reach out to the community, because everybody has those days, whether they are athletes, entrepreneurs, moms, or trying to start even a business. So starting from scratch at the very beginning of their journey, we all have the days where it's really crappy. It would be so bizarre if we wouldn't. And that's the beautiful thing, that as an entrepreneur, you just keep going through them. and you keep challenging yourself to get back up. Because at the end of the day, you sometimes look back and you're like, that podcast where I was declined really wasn't such a good fit to begin with. And looking back now, maybe I am ready now after a year. Just reapply. It doesn't mean that at that particular moment you were a good fit, but maybe in 6 months you are. Sometimes I think about it, it's like not now. It doesn't mean never, right? Just reapply. It's the same thing with everything in life, that it's not really a never.
Yeah.
Just think about it as a business owners all go through the same struggle. And it would be really funny if we would look at some businesses that just immediately turned into a success. If they say that, it's probably not true.
Or they spend millions
If
in
it seems like
advertising.
too good to be true, it's probably really not true.
That's so true.
Right?
Yes, that is very, very true. They either have a humongous amount of money to advertise and get a lot of clients right away, but they spend so much that there's no profit, or they're good at lying.
I probably frequently think that sharing the struggles makes you more authentic and also makes you a stronger magnet to attract the right clients, because they will resonate with your struggles. And that's why my podcast really focuses on the struggles, because I would like that others understand that very successful businesses frequently were born from the struggle, because you struggled with it yourself and you tried to find a solution. You found the solution, and now you're ready to share that solution with others.
Yes. Yes. Talking about having difficulties, I had a sort of a follow-up, not really question, about something that really, as human beings, we do not like. It's life transitions. How do you advise your clients when there is massive life changes, and how do you advise them to navigate these changes gracefully?
So life changes, as with anything, they kind of throw us off a little bit. And we sometimes think about our career as this beautiful linear journey. You go from one thing to the next thing. And it seems like, again, you're looking at others, whether that's on social media or just around you, that they seem to have it all figured out and they're successful. And you think, why is it for me that I seem to struggle? Or maybe you have a certain challenge that comes your way. Maybe it's health, maybe it's family, maybe it's a transition in your career, right? The way that I look at it is somewhat like it's a fork in the road. And you should think about that fork in the road, that maybe there's one path that seems to be the one where your dream is at the end, right? And it may be feeling like it's a little bit of a riskier path. Maybe it feels like it's not the path most traveled. And then there's the other one that might be the safe option right there. I always go for the riskier route, so to speak, because I feel that if you don't go after your dreams, you're going to look back at the end of that safe path and you're like, oh, I wish I would have just gone for my dream, even though I really didn't know what to do. I wish I would have done this. So you should always think of a transition as sometimes as just this moment where you need to sit down and you need to think about, do I continue going on the safe path that I don't enjoy? Do I think about going after my dreams and feeling it's maybe stretching me, it's making me uncomfortable? Because the more comfortable you become with being uncomfortable, the more you actually grow. So transitions frequently are just your environment or your body signaling to you that it's time for growth, and that maybe you need to challenge yourself and getting to that next level in your life, because growth is not comfortable. I have two teenage daughters. Being a teenager is not a comfortable thing. At the same time, I know that they're going to be adults and they're going to look back and you're like, whoa, that was hard, So it's all right. Transition times are positive, and that's maybe like how you need to look at that. It's a positive thing that you're growing, and it might be uncomfortable at times, but you're going to get through this. And it's maybe something that you need to embrace the little wins along the way to keep you propelling to get through it.
Yeah. And I feel like almost when you're failing and having to build back up, it strengthens you. I always think of like a plant, if there is no wind ever, the first time there is a wind in contact, it's going to fall. And it's that constant, struggle to keep growing and strengthening. And so maybe that's exactly the strength that you need to acquire so that when you're in front of your dream, you're like, oh, I needed this extra layer of strength that I didn't have before. So yeah, thank you. I like the way you present things.
Yeah, and it's sometimes nearly think of it as like seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our businesses, as I mentioned, are not linear. There might be a great season, there might be maybe a slower season. And the goal really is that whether that's a mantra or whether that's sticky notes with positive sayings or whether that's self-care moments, that during the positive season, you create little tidbits of joy that in the low season, I don't want to say in the down season, you can go back to that. So it's nearly like, those animals that go into that hibernation, that maybe when you have a slow season, you can feed on the positive wins from your up season, right? And it's so important. And again, it's something that to me, visual reminders help. So sometimes I read thank you cards from clients. Sometimes I look at sticky notes with little positive sayings that help me. I have mantras that help me. I just watched the Olympics and I saw Simone Biles, how she mumbled to herself, you can do this. And I thought, dang, I do that too. I say the exact same thing. You can do this. All these help and they will help you go through that transition.
I love that. Okay, you mentioned 3 times mantras, and as a sound healer, and it's like, the button that you pressed in my mind. I'm very curious to learn more about your personal meditation practice. And then when you mentioned mantras, what does it translate into in your day to day, personally, but also with your clients?
Okay, so my personal little downtime, and I'm going to walk through this totally visually, and you're going to really resonate with that because I'm going to explain it exactly, even without having you hear my home. I'm going to walk you through this. So I have this couch in my living room, which I mostly use just in the middle of the day for laying down 5 minutes and putting my legs up the back of the couch. I don't use it actually for watching TV at all, really, very often, maybe one time a week, right? And so I put my feet up at the back of the couch, and at the wall behind the couch is this beautiful, really large scale mural of Paris.
Hmm.
So I lay on the couch, I have my legs up, and I look at the mural of Paris. And that 5 minutes where my legs are up the wall, this is actually a yoga position that is called legs up the wall, right? So it kind of gets the blood out of your feet. It takes a little bit of the pressure off your neck or your back. And it's just kind of is a super relaxing post to be in. I don't look at my phone. I look at Paris. And in that moment, I see something that for me sparks joy. I'm very much in love with the French culture. I love Paris, and it's Paris at night. I am also a sunset person. And I believe it's just so beautiful to see that beautiful city, the city of love in sunset. So I look at this picture of Paris, I have my feet up, and I can honestly tell you that after 5 minutes, I get up and I'm feeling good again. And it's not a long time. It's just something very small. But in that moment, I just take some time for myself. And my children already, I'm used to this, right? And sometimes they sit down on the carpet in front of me and they hold my hand or something like that. And it's just like this touch is important, but also the feeling that I'm taking care of myself. So your mantra could be very simple. It could be something, you're loved, you can do this, take care of yourself. It's basically just you're repeating words that resonate with you and maybe empowering you. It could be that calm you down, that maybe help you through certain situations. And everybody has different things. So maybe Paris is not on your wall. Like maybe you have a vision wall, vision board. Maybe it is something totally different. Maybe it's a beach. Maybe it is not even a landscape at all. It could be maybe a sky or something. Or maybe you don't need an image on the wall.
Or a vision
So
board.
the important thing is you need to create something that resonates with you because we are all different human beings. And that is, individually completely different. What words resonate with you, what images resonate with you, and of course, what times in the day resonate with you. because I could tell you, you need to do this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but maybe that's when you are like really fired up. Maybe you need this at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? So for me, the mantra is something that you need to sit down and you need to figure this out. And it could just be a very small moment in time, but at the same time, like, look, I already got the couch. I got the image, Paris. I actually don't even really do a whole lot, right? It's all free. It's fast, it's free, and it's really firing me up, so to speak. And then I get up and I'm like, well, that was it. Moving on, you know. So
I love that. Yeah, I mean, we have, the traditional way of meditating, which is with the eyes closed, and never think, sometimes to also keep your eyes open and just focus at something that you actually like, a driver. So yeah, very nice. I like that. And 5 minutes, I mean, I dare anybody to say I don't have 5 minutes, because that's all we have for free time until we no longer have it. So
right.
nice. How I wanted to ask you, what is the future like for you? What do you have any project that you're excited about? I know that I mean, in French we say my little finger has told me that you might have been releasing a book today.
So it started writing down more of my teachings because, again, thinking about what I talked about earlier with regard to the what do I have that could be written on my tombstone? What is my legacy that I want to leave behind? Frequently, the way that I explain things I feel are unique, but maybe people, resonate in learning about it themselves. So I sat down and I started writing down everything into the form of a book. And the book I applied for copyright was just accepted today. So I'm going to hit publish on this. And that's what's going to come out. It's going to be called Mastering Your Goals. And it's a curated collection of 1-page worksheets. Now, keep in mind what I talked about earlier, the 15-minute time blocks, maybe even 5 minutes broken out into these 3 petite practices during the day. So the book goes hand in hand with all this, and it walks you through in 5 sections in changing your idea into something that you can maybe even create, and that, you're feeling your body and your mind and your soul gets really fed by this. So it's this creating something that you care about. I always say that, and that overall you feel you may be helping others with it as well. So it walks you through the different stages of marketing, of entrepreneurship, of innovation, but then also how do you find your own superpower where you're feeling that there's a little bit of you in there leaving that legacy. And I'm really excited about this. So I can't wait to hit publish on Amazon and share that with the world. And that'll be my next step.
Wonderful. Congratulations. That is a huge step to get the copyrights and to be able to release a book. Not everybody can say that. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with the world. Before we close, I have one last question about, your path so far in a way. When you look back and you reflect on your own journey, what is the most significant piece of advice you receive for yourself and you would offer to someone looking to optimize their health, their productivity, and just overall happiness?
Yeah, and that's perfect that we just talked about the book right there. And in my book, actually, I have a lot of tips and pointers and strategies. I even have a tracker that I created that you can use to put in your own goals and then keeping track of it and reaching your milestones along the way. So when I wrote the book, I did it exactly the same way. I basically sat down every day for 10 or 15 minutes and I just kept writing and it kept growing. So my biggest advice to any of the listeners is really just start small, and you're going to see how your goals are going to come closer and closer and closer. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, start breaking down your goal into a little milestone along the way and start chipping away at it. And it's something to where at the beginning it seems like it's so out of reach. But if you keep working at it, you're going to come closer. And it's not always going to be easy. Like speaking about the rules of 3, there might be days when you feel you're actually moving further away, 1 step forward and 2 steps back. But keep going, because we all need those days where things are just not working out. And then maybe the next day you get closer again. So that's really the beautiful thing about it. You're still working on it and you're getting, your experiences along the way. So I always encourage people, just go for it. Otherwise you'll be looking back and you're like, man, I just wish I would have taken that road, even though it seemed risky.
Yeah.
Because I always stayed in my little lane and my safe path and I just didn't enjoy it. So just go for it. High five to you,
Yeah, we never regret the things that we've done.
Yeah.
Even if it failed, hey, at least I gave it a shot, but we do regret the things that we didn't try. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your wisdom. It has been such a pleasant time. And I hope that everybody listening has learned a lot. If you resonated with Christiane's teachings and offerings, feel free to check out her website, and her community is going to be in the comment section right below. And anything that you want to add before we close off?
Yeah, make sure to check out my book, my new baby, so to speak, Mastering Your Goals. I would love to share that with you, and I can't wait to making that connection with you across
Right on. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you again, Christiane, for your time. And until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this enlightening journey today. A special thank you to Dr. Christiane Schroeter for sharing her incredible story and valuable insights with us. If Christiane's journey and her work with Hello Happiness have inspired you, be sure to connect with her and explore the numerous resources she offers to help female entrepreneurs succeed and thrive. You can learn more about her coaching, the Happiness Collective, and her digital products through the links that I provide right below in the episode description. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow Harmonic Odyssey's Soundscape and Mindful Meditation to stay updated. My next episode features another inspiring businesswoman who is making waves in the world of wellness and entrepreneurship. Stay tuned for more resources, including free guides, transcending courses, one-on-one coaching, and so much more. Make sure to visit my website, harmonicodyssey.com, or connect with me on my Instagram or my TikTok. My handle is at AmandineLRH, and all those links also are in the description below. Until next time, keep embracing your journey, stay authentic, shine as bright as you do, and continue spreading your beautiful light. Thank you for being part of this amazing journey in this beautiful community. Until next time.